Do you think you really know dogs? Most people believe they were simply domesticated and that's it, they became pets. But the truth is, the journey of the canine family is far more wild, bloody, mysterious, and brilliant than any history book has ever told. For over 30,000 years, dogs haven't just been our companions. They've been spies, soldiers, spiritual guides, celebrities, outcasts, and even gods in some cultures. Forget the idea that dogs came from a tamed wolf by accident. The evolution of dogs involves genetic experiments, geographic twists, and even emotional alliances between different species. And the craziest part, some of the biggest transformations weren't nature's doing, they were ours. In just a few generations, we turned fierce wolves into affectionate Labradors. We created dogs that don't bark, that climb trees, that trek through snowstorms, or that look like living works of art. And all of it reveals something much deeper. To understand dogs is, in many ways, to understand ourselves. Picture a dog the size of a bear, weighing over 300 pounds and ruling the grasslands of North America. That was the Epicyon, a true giant of the canine family. It didn't just walk like a prehistoric king, it was the king. Unlike modern wolves, its massive skull and powerful jaws suggest it could crush bones with ease, like a walking blender. Fossils found across the US help scientists piece together how this beast moved and hunted, reminding us that the evolution of dogs began long before the age of couch-dwelling pets. Now imagine the dire wolves. Yes, the same ones from Game of Thrones. They were real. Unlike today's gray wolves, these American predators were bulkier, with teeth built to handle large prey. Their remains have been discovered in places like the La Brea tar pits in California, offering clues about their role in ancient ecosystems. And here's a twist, although closely related to modern wolves, they left no direct descendants. Just another unexpected fork in the history of domesticated dogs. Go even further back and you'll find the quiet, fox-sized Leptocyon, a true missing link in the canine family tree. This solitary creature lived about 20 million years ago and was the common ancestor of all modern dogs. It might not seem impressive at first glance, but without Leptocyon, we wouldn't have Chihuahuas or Siberian Huskies. The evolution of dogs starts with humble animals like this, small, but incredibly influential, and the most fascinating part? These extinct canines paved the way for the mind-blowing diversity we'd see later, from crab-hunting dogs in South America to the sled dogs of the Arctic. But before we dive into this wild jungle of adaptations and colors, let's take a closer look at the ones who already carried mysterious, one-of-a-kind traits, like foxes. Although, well, some of them weren't really foxes at all. The gray fox is one of the most intriguing members of the canine family. Unlike many of its canine relatives, it can climb trees with ease. That's right, a tree-climbing dog with claws adapted to scale trunks like a cat. It split early from the lineage of modern canids, making it almost a species of its own in the evolution of dogs. And from this unique branch came the tiny and charismatic island fox. This little creature lives on the Channel Islands in California and is a textbook case of island dwarfism. Weighing around 3 pounds, it looks like a plush toy, but it's fierce and lightning fast. A clear reminder of how the environment shapes the history of domesticated dogs and their wild cousins. Then there's the red fox, by far the most widespread canid on the planet. Found from Europe to Japan, from Canada to North Africa, it thrives everywhere. Its fur ranges from golden to silvery, and that's where the mysterious silver fox comes in. And with the silver fox, we step into a surreal experiment, selective domestication in Russia. In just a few generations, scientists bred foxes that wag their tails and crave affection. This strange experiment offers valuable insights into how dog breeds explained could have emerged so quickly after the wolf. The crab-eating fox might have a funny name, but its ecological role is no joke. It thrives in wetland regions and loves digging through muddy terrain in search of crabs. It's one of the quieter, yet fascinating members of the canine family. In that same lane of oddities, there's the bush dog with partially webbed feet. It hunts in packs like a miniature tropical wolf. Its existence shows how the evolution of dogs also took shape in humid, tropical environments. More striking is the maned wolf, striding through the savannas of Brazil and Bolivia on absurdly long legs. It's neither wolf nor fox, nor dog, it's its own thing entirely. A one-of-a-kind figure in the history of domesticated dogs, even though it was never domesticated. And then there's the elusive short-eared dog, practically a ghost of the Amazon rainforest. It avoids humans, lives in armadillo burrows, and emits a strong odor when threatened. Very little is known about it, which only adds to its mystique within the canine family. These canids prove that even far from the spotlight, there's a wild and stunning diversity at play. And when we shift our focus to those closer to domesticated dogs, the contrast becomes even more fascinating, and the evolutionary links start to reveal themselves. The black-backed jackal is like that one friend who eats anything and never complains. Fruits, insects, carcasses, it's all on the menu. Its varied diet has made it a highly adaptable survivor within the canine family. The African wild dog, also known as the painted dog, is a masterclass in teamwork. It lives in organized packs, hunting with strategy and showing remarkable empathy. Conservation efforts across Africa are now working to restore its image and protect its future. The dhole, on the other hand, is an evolutionary puzzle. It shares traits with both wolves and painted dogs, the result of reticulate evolution, a blending of lineages. This challenges our linear view of the evolution of dogs. In the US and Mexico, the coyote thrives like few others. It sneaks into backyards, lives near cities, and has learned to benefit from human activity. A perfect example of how the history of domesticated dogs and wildlife can intersect. And of course, we can't ignore the gray wolf, the direct ancestor of domestic dogs. It's the foundation of most of the dog breeds explained today. But how did this transformation happen? Well, the next chapter holds the most thrilling clues. 14,000 years ago, a dog was buried alongside humans in Bonn Castle, Germany. It was sick and weak, yet cared for until the very end. That says a lot about the early days of the history of domesticated dogs. There was affection even before full domestication took hold. This bond didn't appear overnight. It was built around campfires and hunting grounds, where gentler wolves earned scraps and shelter. In return, humans got alerts and companionship, a quiet milestone in the evolution of dogs. The dingo, for instance, shows the reverse path. Brought to Australia by humans, it eventually returned to the wild. Still, it retains behavioral traits of domestic dogs, blurring the lines within the canine family. And then came the game changer, artificial selection. Humans began breeding dogs for specific traits: courage, coat, size. That's how hundreds of dog breeds explained came into being, each crafted with a clear purpose in mind. This phase marks one of the greatest biological design experiments in human history. Whether creating a guard dog or a lab companion, it became a matter of choice. And with that, we entered a whole new era, a dazzling parade of iconic breeds, some of them bordering on the mythical. The Basenji is known as the dog that doesn't bark, but that doesn't mean it's quiet. The Xoloitzcuintle, or simply Xolo, is almost mystical. This hairless Mexican dog was once seen as a spiritual guide to the afterlife. It's a rare gem in the history of domesticated dogs, having survived colonization and centuries of stigma. The Mastiff is raw power in canine form. Once used in wars, hunts, and castle defense, it can weigh over 150 pounds, a clear example of the brute strength artificial selection has achieved in the evolution of dogs. Huskies and Malamutes are the soul of this lead. Cold-resistant and bursting with energy, they can cross miles of snow with ease. They descend directly from dogs bred for extreme survival, and to this day, that legacy beats in their chests. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the poodle, a master of intelligence and adaptability. Once a circus star and a hunting dog, it now rules as a pampered apartment pet, and if you think that's surprising, just wait until you see how the smallest dog in the world managed to conquer the globe. The Labradoodle was born out of a need to create a hypoallergenic dog, and it worked. By crossing a Labrador with a poodle, breeders created an intelligent, affectionate pet that's perfect for people with allergies. It's a modern example of how the history of domesticated dogs is still being written. Pit bulls, on the other hand, live in a constant identity crisis. The name is often used for several different breeds, like the American Bully, the Staffordshire Terrier, or even muscular mixed breeds. It highlights just how vast and misunderstood the canine family really is. The reputation of pit bulls as aggressive doesn't match the reality for most of them. With proper training and love, they become loyal and obedient companions. In this case, the evolution of dogs isn't biological, it's cultural, shaped by human hands. And speaking of mixes, nothing represents it better than mutts, the beloved street dogs. They're the unpredictable result of centuries of breeding, with no pedigree but tons of personality. The first dog to orbit Earth, Leica, was one of them. These dogs prove that value doesn't come from a certificate. Genetic blending has produced pets that are healthy, resilient, and truly one of a kind. And with all this diversity, one can't help but wonder, how did it all begin? And where do these branches meet in the great evolutionary tree? Reticulate evolution is a powerful idea, different canid species interbreeding and creating entirely new lineages. It's not a straight path, but rather a tangled web of genetic shortcuts. That's how hybrids like the dhole emerged, carrying traits of both wolves and painted dogs. The phenomenon of island dwarfism also leaves a clear mark on the canine family. Species isolated on islands, like the island fox, tend to shrink over time. It's nature tweaking its own blueprint, almost like tailor-made natural selection. Then there are the domestication experiments, like those with Russian silver foxes, which feel like science fiction. In just a few generations, the foxes began seeking affection, changing their coat colors, and even wagging their tails. This gives us important clues about how the evolution of dogs might have sped up under human influence. Humans played a massive role in spreading dogs across the world. Dogs crossed oceans on boats, like those that eventually became the dingoes of Australia. They were brought into wars, missions, even into space, and all of that left deep imprints in the history of domesticated dogs. These parallel themes reveal how the canine universe is shaped by biology, geography, and culture. And when we bring all these paths together, we begin to see a massive evolutionary tree, where every branch tells a story. But the real question is, how can we visualize this canine timeline? It all begins with the unassuming Leptocyon, that small ancestor who barely looked like a dog. And yet, from this overlooked figure came the entire vast canine family we know today. Like a great-great-grandfather no one remembers, but without whom the story couldn't exist. From the Leptocyons came branches that split into wolves, jackals, foxes, and many more. It's a tree that stretches across continents, climates, and lifestyles, a living map of the evolution of dogs, shaped over millions of years and countless evolutionary detours. The domestic dog came from the wolf, but other branches took wild turns. The red fox, for example, evolved in a completely different direction from the gray wolf, though both share the same ancient root. And the Maine wolf, despite the name, sits on a branch all its own. At the base of this tree, fossils help tell the story. At the top, we find modern breeds like the Labrador, the Poodle, and the Whippet, each one a direct result of human intervention. This is where the history of domesticated dogs intersects with our everyday lives. Visualizing this genealogy isn't just about understanding where dogs came from. It's about understanding how a Chihuahua and a Great Dane, so radically different, are biologically the same species. And beyond that, how this genetic flexibility opened the door to new hybrids. Even between the wild and the tame, not every canid is fully wild or completely domesticated. Some live right on the edge between the two worlds, like the coyote, who hunts in the woods but also raids garbage cans in the city. It's a perfect example of the canine family's adaptability. The dingo is another fascinating case. Once domesticated, it returned to the wild in Australia and still thrives today without a collar or a human in sight. Its existence challenges the fixed idea of the history of domesticated dogs. Then there's the raccoon dog, which looks like a raccoon but is actually a canid. It hibernates, lives in seclusion, yet shows behaviors that resemble small-town backyard dogs. This blend of traits reveals how the evolution of dogs can follow unexpected paths. And hybrids like dholes, with genes from both wolves and painted dogs, show that nature conducts its own experiments. Reticulate evolution doesn't need a lab, just proximity and time. That's how new traits emerge, sometimes more effective than the ones before. This line between domesticated and wild isn't just biological, it's behavioral. Maybe that's why so many dogs seem to understand us so well, and why some wild creatures still carry something familiar in their gaze. But what if all of this is just the beginning? After 30,000 years by our side, or better yet, evolving with us, the question changes: what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep seeing your dog as just a cute pet? Or finally recognize the evolutionary marvel they truly are? The canine family teaches us about adaptation, loyalty, intelligence, and survival. Have you ever stopped to think about how many of those instincts you carry too? And more importantly, did we domesticate dogs, or did they domesticate us? Which of these stories surprised you the most? The dog that doesn't bark, the bear-sized ancestor? Or the mutt that became an astronaut? Tell me in the comments, and if any of these facts made you see dogs differently, then this journey was already worth it. Oh, and if you want to keep discovering the stories no one else tells, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We've still got a lot to explore about the wild past, the domesticated present, and the unpredictable future of dogs.